Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I don't quite know what I've done to deserve not sitting down on a sofa, I must say, to talk to you all, which would be much more pleasant. So you'll have to put up with me standing here and waving my arms about. But I particularly wanted, if I may at the beginning, to thank the Prime Minister for his enormous generosity in coming to join us today when I know he's rushing from one thing to another, to Somalia conference and goodness knows what else. So it is extremely good of him to give up this time. But I think it has, above all else, I also wanted to say how enormously I appreciate it, for what it's worth, the fact that all of you, ladies and gentlemen, have bothered to turn up. We weren't quite sure how many were going to turn up. I think people thought it would be only about 400. It's now over 600, which does show, I think, the level of interest and support for, I hope, a lot of what you've been hearing this afternoon. But I think it also demonstrates very much indeed that British business is here, represented by all of you, at its very best. And for those of you who've had to put up with me over 26 years of being President of Business in the Community, a lot of you probably weren't even born at the time, I apologize if I yet again repeat myself. But first of all, I am enormously grateful. Secondly, I hesitate on so many occasions to ask you for more. This is always the difficulty, because there are so many different challenges, so many issues to be dealt with. But time and again, business, the private sector, has proved that you have the most enormous value to bring, particularly in partnership with others, the public sector and the community sector. And I know you're asked to do so much, you're asked for help left, right and centre, but the fact that you do come and give that help and you provide secondis and others makes more difference than you would ever believe, and I hope you begin to realise that. Apart from anything else, I know you've been looking at this afternoon at the community mark companies, those who've achieved the awards. Just those companies alone, their impact is extraordinary. Over the past 4 years, just 4 years, they've collectively invested nearly £750 million in their communities, which when you tot it all up to that degree, that total, it really is remarkable, I think. And they've invested over £39 million of employee time to address some of these issues. That is, again, something remarkable that many people don't even realize is happening. They've also supported 6.5 million children in over 52,000 schools. That's another remarkable, unheard of fact. So that is something for which I am deeply grateful, and for the fact that you keep turning up when asked for more. We were all very shocked, I think, by the violence of the riots last summer. I'm old enough to remember riots in Toxteth and Brixton 25 years ago, I suppose. But I wanted, if I may, on this occasion, to pay a special tribute to Stephen Howard, who brilliantly mobilized business in the community to help address some of the issues in the aftermath of the riots. And also to Mark Price, whose chairmanship again has proved time and again the value of having business leaders such of his caliber who can also help to make the connections. But I really want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that after 30 years of business in the community, we do now know what works. And rather than reinventing the wheel, let's make this one work even better on this occasion. And that, of course, is what today is really all about. For instance, we know about Work Inspiration, led by Steve Holliday of National Grid, which is helping young people who, because of their upbringing, have no concept of what it is to go to work. Then there's Ready for Work, another program led by John Varley, which does much the same for homeless people. Again, really effective. Or there's Paul Dreschler's brilliant business class, which I think most of you know about, which forges long-term strategic partnerships between local clusters of businesses and schools. So we've learned a lot, I think, from these successful initiatives, and building on them, we've created now the idea of business connectors. And this really came about because after years of going round the country and attending meetings and trying to get people together and so on, I suddenly realized that there was something missing, and that was you sit down and discuss all these issues and everybody agrees, but then there's nobody left behind afterwards as one person who can actually make all these things happen by going around talking to all the players and trying to get them to join up all the dots locally. So it seemed to me that a seconded project manager from the business world, from companies that understood what we were trying to achieve, could be of enormous value. And much to my amazement, Stephen Howard has picked this up and come up with the business connector idea. And I've seen them in action in the pilot projects in Redcar and Tottenham, and I know just what a difference they can make. For instance, Kay Horn from Sainsbury's, I saw her the other day when I went down to Tottenham and Haringey, 6 months after we visited in August, to see what had happened, what the problems were with the traders and the shopkeepers and everything else. Kay Horn has been an unbelievable secret weapon in that area. And she said to me when I saw her that if you cut her in half, it would say Sainsbury's all the way through. But she is somebody, like the other connectors, who can, as you've heard, make that key difference where people haven't actually got together to talk and to find solutions on the ground, very often more simple solutions. So this is what they can do. They're also, ladies and gentlemen, worth their weight in gold. One person can achieve an enormous amount and can leverage millions. That's the point. We found that critical to the success of connectors is that they are individuals of high caliber with vast amounts of energy. And in many cases, it may be the toughest job they have ever had. But I rather suspect that it could also be the most rewarding, which I think is what you've heard today from the Business Connector guinea pigs. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is the vision for Business Connectors? In short, we want to create a nationwide network. We want to make it easy for charities, mine and others, to work together. In Redcar, Burnley and Burslem, for instance, we are already doing this. We can build a national network of business connectors. And I can think of no better way to mark the 30th anniversary of business in the community than for it to become the hub of a network of businesses deploying all we have learned in those 3 decades about creating effective business community partnerships. This could help boost achievement in schools, improve the chances for employment for young and disadvantaged people, and also encourage entrepreneurial activity and help the voluntary sector. I think though also it's important to recognize, and I find this when going abroad and traveling, you ask people why they want to invest in this country, for instance, and apart from all sorts of other considerations, they so often say they want to invest here because of this country's stability. But I do think it's also important that we invest in that stability and in maintaining it. So it's always necessary to remember that the business case for your involvement could not be sounder at the end of the day, because the health of your bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, depends upon secure, stable, and motivated communities. That's the point. So, if I may, I would very much like to thank the Prime Minister in particular for his wonderful support for business in the community's pilot scheme, which created 20 business connectors in 20 areas. I also wanted to thank Nick Hurd for guiding things so successfully with his Office of Civil Society and helping to kick-start all this effort. And ladies and gentlemen, should anyone think that it is only for the large companies, I must just mention SHM, because their participation in the pilot in Islington proves this can work for smaller companies. I also wanted to acknowledge, if I may, the additional pledge made today by Sainsbury's, Greggs, BT and Carillion, who are going to extend the length of the secondments they've already created. That's terrific news, and maintain a connector in the areas that they are supporting. Of course, all this couldn't be possible without the partnerships with many local and national voluntary groups and charities, particularly the NCVO, the ACEVO, the Groundwork Unlimited, Locality and Pilot Light, who've all given invaluable advice. So too the Community Development Foundation and those who have offered practical support like office space and technical assistance such as Fujitsu, who've supported the IT network that the connectors use to do their work and record their achievements. Then, of course, there's Gwyn Burr and Sainsbury's, who've provided such outstanding leadership of the community team at Business in the Community and the Business Connector program. And I'm particularly thrilled that Waitrose, United Utilities, Midland Heart, Fujitsu and Accenture are about to second members of their staff on the scheme. And to Dairy Crest, we owe even great gratitude, who've shown that the Business Connector model can work as well in rural areas as it can in towns and cities. And I know that because we've managed to do that up in the North Highlands in Caithness. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I'm thankful, very thankful, that Lloyds Banking Group has agreed to increase their support of the programme with 20 12-month secondments every year for the next 3 years. That, again, is unbelievably welcome news. So, ladies and gentlemen, in addition, they've agreed to make a significant financial donation alongside a generous pro bono offer to support the training and support of the business connectors. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Business in the Community has already helped, through your help, to bolster the fabric of this country's community capital. Please remember that. And I hope others will realize now just how vital your role is in all this, in helping to maintain the community dimension, the social dimension. But we do have to work hard now to make it far more resilient to the growing stresses and strains caused by such a difficult economic climate. And all I can say is thank goodness you're all there to help in time of need. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.